On a cold morning in May of 1991, a line of white trucks rolled onto 400 to 800 acres of newly purchased farm ground outside Cedar Break, Kansas. County officials stood by the road smiling for photographs. Bank executives shook hands beside fresh survey flags, and a few dozen local farmers watched from the fence line, hoping the biggest agricultural investment their county had seen in years might finally bring some money back. 13-year-old Nora Bell stood at the edge of the crowd with a rusted coffee can in both hands. She was not there to celebrate. Inside the can was a lump of gray soil, a few roots, and water that had seeped up from a place every survey map called dry ground. Nora had tried to show it to the men in charge. They had told her the studies were finished. They had told her engineers had already checked the land. They had told her a farm girl was seeing problems where none existed, but the ground was already giving its answer. And by the time Prairie State Bank understood what Nora had been holding in that coffee can, the mistake was no longer small enough to hide in a report. The story began several months earlier on the Bell Place, a modest cattle and wheat farm west of Cedar Break, where Nora spent most of her days working beside her grandfather, Eli Bell. The Bell farm was not large, not rich, and not easy. It was the kind of place that taught lessons by wearing out hands, boots, and patience. Nora helped mend gates. She checked stock tanks. She carried salt blocks to the back pasture. She scraped mud out of water gaps after storms and learned which fence posts could be saved and which ones needed to come out before they broke under pressure. Most children her age knew the county by roads and school bus stops. Nora knew it by low spots, windbreaks, clay shelves, and the places cattle refused to cross after a hard rain. Eli had made sure of that. He was not a man who explained much at first. When Nora asked why one patch of grass stayed green after August heat had burned everything else down, he would not simply tell her. He would point with his pocket knife and ask what she noticed. Where was the grass thickest? Where did the soil crack? Where did the rainwater stand? Where did it disappear? Only after she answered would he add a few quiet words. The ground keeps receipts, he often said. Nora thought it was one of his old farmer sayings, the kind grown-ups repeated when they did not want to give a direct answer. She did not know then that it would become the sentence she remembered most. That spring, the whole county was talking about Prairie State Bank. After years of drought, bad markets, and farm foreclosures, the bank had gathered nearly 5,000 acres from scattered parcels around Cedar Break. Most of that land had been worked hard and left tired. Some fields had not produced well in years, but the bank had a plan. It would combine the parcels into one modern operation. It would level low ground, install new drainage, add center pivot irrigation, rebuild access roads, and turn the whole thing into a high-efficiency seed and grain project. On paper, it looked like salvation. The feed store owner expected more orders. The diner expected fuller booths. The mechanic expected more work on trucks and irrigation motors. Even farmers who disliked bankmen admitted the plan sounded better than empty fields and auction signs. But Eli Bell did not join the excitement. Whenever the project came up, he got quieter. He never called it foolish. He never stood in town making speeches. He simply listened, rubbed a thumb over the scar on his knuckle, and looked toward the South Flats with the expression of a man hearing a storm before anyone else smelled rain. One evening, Nora found him leaning on a gate, watching a crew truck move along the far edge of the new bank ground. "Do you think they can make it work?" she asked. Eli kept his eyes on the truck. "They can make something work," he said. That answer bothered her. What does that mean? He looked at the dark line of cottonwoods beyond the fields. It means a plan can be right and still be wrong for the place. Nora did not understand him, not yet. By late April, the bank's crews were everywhere. Surveyors drove steel stakes into the fields. Orange ribbons snapped in the wind. Men in clean boots carried rolled drawings and pointed at places where dirt roads, drain lines, and irrigation towers would soon run. The county treated it like a beginning. Nora heard people talk about it at the hardware store, outside the church, in the diner, and in the grain office. Everyone spoke as if the future had finally decided to stop passing Cedar Break by. Then Nora noticed something strange. One row of survey flags crossed a wide, shallow bench of land south of the Bell fence. To anyone else, it looked ordinary, a little flatter than the surrounding field, a little paler in summer. Not much else, but Eli had avoided that bench for as long as Nora could remember. When they moved cattle, he swung wide around it. When he checked fence after storms, he approached from the ridge instead of crossing the low ground. When a calf slipped through a broken wire one wet spring and wandered near that place, Eli had cursed under his breath and gone after it himself. He never explained why that day. When he saw the orange flag stretching across the bench, his face changed. It was not anger. It was not fear exactly. It was recognition. Nora watched him for a moment, then looked back at the flags. "What's wrong with that field?" "Nothing you can see today," Eli said. The answer made her look harder. The bank's engineers saw dry ground. Their soil reports called it stable enough for planned grading and drainage. Their drawings treated it like every other low bench in the county. But Eli treated it like a closed door. A week later, rain gave Nora her first clue. The storm came at night, hard and fast, drumming against the tin roof until the house seemed to breathe with it. By morning the sky had cleared, and the county glittered with puddles. Nora and Eli rode out to check fences. When they reached the ridge above the South Flats, Nora saw a shape on the bank's land she had never noticed before. It was not a pond. It was not simple standing water. A thin gray line curved through the field, bending around the bench, vanishing, then appearing again farther down. It looked almost like someone had drawn a vein across the soil and filled it with rain. Nora stared at it. The rest of the field was wet, but this was different. The water sat in a narrow pattern, too clean to be chance. Eli saw it too. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he turned his horse and rode home by the long way. That afternoon, Nora could not leave it alone. While Eli worked on the tractor shed door, she went into the old tack room, where boxes, rope, harness parts, seed sacks, broken lanterns, and old ledgers had been piled for longer than she had been alive. She was not sure what she was looking for. Only that Eli's reaction had not come from nowhere. For nearly an hour she dug through dust. Then she found a blue ledger wrapped in feed sackcloth and tied with baling twine. The cover was cracked. The pages smelled like mildew and dry paper. Inside were columns of dates, rainfall amounts, sketches, and short notes written in a hand she did not recognize. At first, Nora thought it was a farm account book, but the entries were not about money. They were about the ground. 2 inches rain. South bench opened by noon. Gray seep below cottonwoods. Cattle refused lower crossing. Water moved under crust. Surface looked dry by sundown. Do not cut the old seam again. Nora read that last line 3 times. In the back of the ledger, folded between pages, was a rough drawing of the South Flats. It did not match modern property lines. It did not care where one farm ended and another began. Instead, it showed a wandering seam crossing several parcels, bending through the very bench the bank now planned to level. In the corner were 2 initials. R.L. Nora carried the ledger into the kitchen and placed it in front of Eli. The old man looked down at it. His expression emptied. "Where did you find this?" "In the tack room," Nora said. "Who was R.L.?" Eli ran one finger over the cracked blue cover. Ruth Larkin, he said. She kept rain books for half this county when my father was young. Why? Because she noticed what men with clipboards liked to miss. Nora waited. Eli sat down slowly. Ruth Larkin had lived 2 miles east of the Bell place in the 1930s. She had been a widow, a schoolteacher's daughter, and a farmer by necessity. During the dry years, she began recording rainfall, seepage, crop failures, animal behavior, and places where water appeared after storms, even when no creek existed on the surface. People laughed at her at first. Then they started asking what she had written down. Because Ruth had a way of remembering the land when everyone else remembered only the last good harvest. Eli knew the ledger existed. He had seen his father use it. But after his father died, the book disappeared into the farm's clutter, and the reason for its warnings faded with it. Nora opened to the page with the rough drawing. What does old seam mean? Eli did not answer quickly. It means there used to be a course under that flat, he said. Not a creek you can see. Not most days. More like a hidden path the water still knows. Nora looked toward the window, toward the bank ground beyond the fields, and they're going to cut across it. Eli folded his hands. They already have. For the next 2 weeks, Nora studied the blue ledger every chance she got. She compared Ruth Larkin's old sketches with what she could see from the ridge. She marked the places where the gray line had appeared after rain. She wrote down where the bank's flags crossed the seam. She even walked the Bell side of the fence with a notebook, pressing her boot into pale soil that looked firm on top but held water beneath the crust. The more she looked, the less the South Flats seemed ordinary. They were not broken, they were not useless. They simply moved water in a way that did not fit clean lines on a modern plan. That difference mattered. At least Nora thought it did. Getting anyone else to believe her was another matter. When a project foreman stopped near the Bell fence one afternoon, Nora showed him the coffee can of gray soil she had taken from the seep line. The water inside looked cloudy, almost metallic. He glanced at it, smiled politely, and told her saturated soil was common after spring rain. She showed him the ledger. He said old farm notes were interesting, but the bank had commissioned proper studies. She pointed at the orange flags crossing the old seam. He said the engineers had accounted for drainage. Then he looked past her toward Eli and added, not unkindly, that every major project made a few neighbors nervous. That line made Nora's face burn. Neighbors nervous. That was all he thought this was. A farm girl and an old man uncomfortable with change. The bank's public meeting came a week later at the Cedar Break school gym. Folding chairs filled the basketball court. Maps stood on easels. A project manager in a Navy suit explained the investment, the new infrastructure, the jobs, the crop projections, and the long-term benefits. People clapped. Nora sat beside Eli with the blue ledger on her knees. When the floor opened for questions, she raised her hand. At first, the moderator did not notice her. Then a few people turned. Finally, he nodded. Nora stood, holding the ledger against her chest. She explained the south bench. She explained the gray seep after rain. She explained Ruth Larkin's entries and the warning about not cutting the old seam. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. The gym went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when people are not sure whether to be respectful or amused. The project manager thanked her. He said the team appreciated local history. He said modern soil testing, drainage design, and hydrological review had all been completed. He said the development would be monitored carefully. Then he moved to the next question. A few people gave Nora sympathetic looks. Others smiled as if she had done something brave but harmless. Eli did not speak on the drive home. Nora stared out the truck window at the dark fields. She had not expected applause. but she had expected someone to at least ask to see the pages. No one did. By early summer, the project had become the county's pride. The bank repaired old roads. Crews laid drainage pipe. Earth movers shaved the south bench into a clean grade. Center pivot towers rose across the flats like giant skeletons. For a while, everything looked successful. The first test plots came up even in green. New payroll money moved through town. The diner bought extra coffee cups. The bank issued glowing updates about progress and productivity. Nora hated how relieved people sounded, because part of her wanted to be wrong. If the bank was right, the county got jobs. If the bank was right, those empty fields became useful again. If the bank was right, then a warning in a cracked blue ledger was just an old fear carried too long. By July, even Nora began to doubt herself. The land looked fine. The crops looked better than fine. The engineers seemed confident. And every time she tried to return to the ledger, the evidence felt smaller than the noise around the project. One evening, she admitted it to Eli while they were fixing a water gap. Maybe Ruth was talking about something that doesn't matter anymore. Eli tightened the wire, then looked at the clouds gathering in the west. Maybe, he said. Nora frowned. That's all? He gave the wire another twist. Dry ground can make liars out of everybody, he said. Wait until it has to tell the truth. The truth came in September. Rain fell for nearly 2 days. Not a disaster, not a flood. Just steady prairie rain, patient enough to find every weak place men had covered. When the clouds lifted, Nora rode to the ridge before breakfast. The South Flats looked wrong. One of the new service roads had slumped near the graded bench. A shallow pool had formed where no basin had been designed. A pale gray streak curved across the field, bending around the bank's drainage trench and reappearing near a line of pivot tracks. It was the same shape Nora had seen in spring. Only now the bank had cut across it with pipe, grade work, and machinery. By noon, maintenance trucks were parked on the flats. By evening, men were walking the field with stakes. The official explanation was simple. Heavy rain had exposed a few routine drainage issues. The bank would adjust. Nora took the blue ledger back to the kitchen table and opened Ruth Larkin's notes. 2-day rain. Cut seam carried water sideways. Road lost shoulder. Tile failed where gray sand moved. Not a wet spot, a path. The words made the room feel colder. Not a wet spot, a path. Over the next month, more problems appeared. A drain line clogged with fine gray sand. A section of service road settled after a storm. An irrigation tower left ruts so deep the crew had to bring in a tractor to pull it free. One field dried normally on the surface but stayed soft underneath, forcing delays no one had planned for. Each issue had its own explanation. Improper compaction, unusual rain, sediment load, routine adjustment, bad timing. But Nora had learned to step back. On Ruth Larkin's drawing, the incidents were not scattered. They followed the seam. That was when Nora decided the ledger was not enough. She needed to know why Ruth had written those warnings in the first place. The county courthouse kept old newspapers, tax maps, drainage petitions, and meeting records in a back room that smelled of dust and floor wax. Nora started going there after school when Eli had business in town. The clerk, Mrs. Donnelly, let her sit at a side table as long as she handled the papers carefully. For days, Nora found almost nothing. Then she found Ruth Larkin's name in a 1938 article about something called the South Bench Improvement Company. It had been a smaller version of the bank's dream. Local investors wanted to drain and level the same flats, improve crop yields, and prove the land could be made more productive with the right engineering. At first it worked. That was the part that unsettled Nora most. The old project had not failed immediately. It had looked promising. Investors had praised it. The local paper had called it practical and forward-looking. Then the wet cycle came, drainage ditches filled with moving sand. Road shoulders softened. Fields that appeared dry collapsed under wagon wheels. Costs rose. Planned expansions were delayed. Arguments began over who should pay for repairs. By 1941, the project had been scaled back until almost nothing of the original plan remained. Nora found Ruth's name again in a meeting summary. She had warned them that the South Bench did not shed water in the way their drawings assumed. The board dismissed her notes as anecdotal. Nora did not know that word at first, so she asked Mrs. Donnelly. "It means they thought her observations were just stories," the clerk said. Nora looked down at the paper. Stories. Ruth had spent years watching the land. The men had spent months drawing plans. And somehow her knowledge had become the weaker proof. That was the mistake. Not the pipe, not the road, not even the grading. The mistake was believing the land only mattered when it appeared in the format powerful people respected. By November, the bank's confidence was starting to crack. Nothing had collapsed. No one declared failure. The crops had still produced. But the project was costing more than expected, and the same repairs kept returning under different names. A low road was rebuilt. A drain line was flushed. A soft section was reinforced. A service lane was moved. A grading plan was revised. Each change sounded manageable. Together, they told a different story. The bank ordered a technical review. This time, the engineers looked beyond single problem sites. They mapped every recurring issue across the 800 acres. They included rainfall timing, sediment movement, soil saturation, grade changes, and equipment delays. The result was uncomfortable. The trouble spots were connected, not by property line, not by road, not by any feature visible on a normal map. They followed the old seam. A younger soil scientist named Daniel Price was the first person from the project to ask about the ledger. He came to the Bell farm on a sharp December afternoon with his coat collar turned up against the wind. Unlike the men who had dismissed Nora in spring, he did not begin by explaining why she was wrong. He asked to see what she had found. Nora spread Ruth Larkin's blue ledger across the kitchen table. Eli stood near the stove, quiet as fence wire. Daniel studied the pages for nearly an hour. He did not smile politely. He did not call the entries interesting. He copied dates, rainfall amounts, and locations. He traced Ruth's hand-drawn seam and compared it with a new map of the bank's problem sites. Then he took off his glasses and said the first words Nora had been waiting months to hear. "This lines up." The investigation widened after that. Project officials reviewed old drainage records. Mrs. Donnelly helped locate petitions from the 1930s. Retired farmers were asked what they remembered hearing from their parents. More family notebooks appeared from barns, attics, and desks, where no one had thought to look for agricultural intelligence. The pattern became clearer. Beneath portions of the South Flats was a buried watercourse, a natural pathway through gray sand and clay layers that only became obvious under certain rainfall conditions. Most of the year, it hid itself. During dry months, the ground looked stable. During shallow tests, it behaved normally. During ordinary planning windows, nothing about it demanded attention. But after slow, steady rain, water moved through the seam and carried fine material with it. That movement changed the strength of the ground above it. It clogged drains. It softened roads. It shifted pressure into places the bank had treated as unrelated. The modern reports had not been worthless. They had simply been too brief. They described the land as it appeared during the slice of time in which it had been tested. Ruth Larkin's ledger described what the land did across years. That difference cost money. By spring, Prairie State Bank faced a choice. It could keep patching each problem as though the next repair would be the last. Or it could redesign the most vulnerable parts of the project around the seam instead of across it. The second choice was expensive. New drainage routes had to be cut. One service road had to be moved to higher ground. Several acres planned for intensive production had to be downgraded. Equipment schedules had to change after major rain. A monitoring plan had to be built around conditions old farmers had once recognized by sight. The bank chose the redesign. No one in a suit called it surrender. They called it adaptation. But everyone in Cedar Break understood what had happened. The plan had finally stopped trying to make the land forget itself. The cost was never announced in one dramatic number at first. It came in pieces: a revised contract, additional drainage work, a delayed planting schedule, road relocation, engineer fees, lost productivity on the lowest acres. By the end, people close to the project estimated the extra cost at more than $3 million. $3 million for a warning that had been sitting in a blue ledger, wrapped in feed sack cloth, less than a mile from the ground it described. Nora did not feel triumphant when the truth became known. For months she had imagined that being proved right would feel like winning. It did not. It felt stranger than that. Because the men who had ignored her were not monsters. Most of them were not even careless. They were trained to trust reports, tests, drawings, and credentials. And those things mattered. But they had forgotten that expertise can arrive in more than one kind of package. Sometimes it looks like a stamped survey. Sometimes it looks like a soil scientist with a map. And sometimes it looks like a widow in the 1930s writing rainfall notes by lamplight because she knows the ground will outlive the men arguing about it. After the redesign, the project survived. The bank did not lose the land. The fields still produced. The county still benefited from the investment. But the story people remembered was not about the bank's acreage or the new irrigation towers. They remembered the coffee can. They remembered the girl at the school gym with the cracked blue ledger. They remembered how many people had smiled because they thought she was carrying a story when she was actually carrying evidence. Eli kept the ledger on a shelf in the kitchen after that, not hidden, not wrapped up, not buried in the tack room. When farmers came by, he let them look through it. Some brought their own notebooks. Some brought old maps. Some brought nothing but memories their fathers had told them, and they had almost forgotten. For a while, Cedar Break became a place where people started asking older questions again. Where does water stand after a 2-day rain? Where do cattle refuse to cross? Which low road fails every 7th spring? Which field looks good until the wrong kind of weather arrives? Those questions had always been there. The county had simply stopped treating them as knowledge. Years later, Nora would say that Ruth Larkin's ledger did not save the bank. Not by itself. The ledger only did what good records do. It held a door open long enough for someone else to walk through. Nora walked through because Eli had taught her to notice. Daniel Price walked through because he was willing to compare data with memory instead of choosing one against the other. The county walked through because the cost of forgetting had finally become too large to ignore. In the end, the most valuable thing beneath those 4,800 acres was not the soil, the water, the crops, or the bank's investment. It was the memory of how the land behaved before anyone tried to improve it. The bank had bought acres. Nora had found the receipt, and the ground had kept it all along.